is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis coming to y'all with a quick video. I wanted to let you guys know I got some new merchandise available, not just t-shirt anymore. I got different type of t-shirt, different type of shirts and logos that you can purchase on my spread shirt, and also hoodies now. We have expanded and added more to the channel and more merchandise for the brand. Thanks for supporting. It will be in the description and the links will be in the comment section below. Thanks for helping me and supporting the movement. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis. I'm going to check out the video. What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis coming to y'all with a quick video. We're going to talk about Chris Paul, a guy that a lot of people have given up on. A lot of people say that he's washed up and they should have traded him. And right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder aren't really doing that much. A lot of people had them as a team that could make it or sneak into the last two spots, the 7th and the 8th seed in the Western Conference, and that hasn't really been the case. It seems like they don't really have enough to go out there and compete for 48 minutes and defend for 48 minutes. But one thing we have noticed is that even though Chris Paul has worn down and he's not the same player that he used to be, he still has shown that he can be a decent defender, and I think that that's something important for another team that's looking for a point guard that can really make great decisions and knock down shots in the clutch and control the pace of the game, but not only because sometimes control the outcome of the game, and him being able to still knock down that mid-range and get to his spots, him being a decent three-point shooter, still in his career, whether he's on the ball or on the ball or off the ball. I think that's very, very important. And you look at his three-point percentage, he's shooting 4.4 threes and shooting it at 39%. He also getting to the free throw line 5.1, which is higher than the last two seasons he had in Houston, but he's also still an 80% free throw shooter. Matter of fact, above average free throw shooter at 88.4. He's still getting his 4 rebounds. He's getting a career low in assists, but that's because he's playing on and off the ball with Shai Gilgeous and Dennis Schroeder. As they play make and get those touches and get opportunities to make plays, that's less the ball is in Chris Paul's hands, so his assist numbers reflect that. Plus, he's still playing 30 minutes a game, so it's not like Chris Paul is out here playing 20 to 24 minutes. He's still playing 30 minutes with his age, and he still looks pretty decent. You look at the numbers across the board, they look amazing for a guy of his age, being 2.1 turnovers a game and 45% from the field. When people thought he was done, people felt like Chris Paul couldn't create a shot anymore. He didn't have that burst anymore. He didn't have that great first step like he had, especially in New Orleans. The guy was a blur. You make a mistake, he was at the basket. You make a mistake, it was a floater or pull up. But he still is showing that he can still control what shots that he get. He's not being forced to do anything that he doesn't want to do, and that's very, very impressive for a guy that everybody thought had lost it after playing in Houston. People feel like losing Chris Paul and getting Russell Westbrook was an upgrade, which it is now that we look back at it. But Chris Paul is still showing that if he's healthy, he can contribute. Is he worth the contract that he's on? I think that's another story for another day, because he did get paid so much money that it is a bad contract now. Even if you're giving me 16 and 6 and 4, it's still not worth the 30 to 40 million that I'm paying you. So I understand why people say that. But Chris Paul has shown still that he's still a decent player in the NBA. He's still showing that he at least is a starter in this league. And remember, like I said, he doesn't have the ball in his hands the whole game. So his numbers are down in that perspective. So for him to be able to do what he's doing right now is still impressive, because most people thought he was washed up. Most people thought he was done. Most people thought he couldn't even score the basketball at a good level right now. He's still shooting decent percentages. And like I said, his three-point shot is off the dribble too. He's still doing that dribble, set feet, throw up three. It's a difficult shot, honestly, but if it's going in at 39%, that's what teams want. Teams want you to be able to defend. Teams want you to be able to knock down threes, and teams want you to be able to, run sets. Chris Paul has been able to check all those boxes, but like I said, the biggest problem with Chris Paul is the money. If you want Chris Paul, you're going to have to give some aspirants up, or you're going to have to give up some players that you really don't want to give up to match that salary. We look at teams like Miami, who has been rumored to wanting Chris Paul. If they get the Chris Paul that they're getting right now, is he even better than Goran Dragic? Oh, I believe it's coming off the bench. But I think he still will fit with Jimmy Butler in that team because of the skill sets that I have told you before that he still has. But you still do have a couple of more years on that contract. Can Chris Paul even play at the level that he's on right now? in the next 2 to 3 years? I think that's going to be the next thing people are going to be asking, because it'll be true. He's still showing that he's a starting caliber player, but as he gets older and as he continues to age, can he still be able to give you this 16? Will he still be able to be efficient? Will he still be able to be a decent 3-point shooter? And I feel like outside of injuries, I don't see why he can't. His game is very smart. His game is very high IQ. He don't take shots he don't want, and the shots he do take are high value, high efficiency shots. And when he makes a pass, he doesn't rush it. He doesn't force it. He just make the right play, whether that's on or off the ball or just keeping the ball moving. Chris Paul still has leadership ability. He still has the brains to figure it out. And his body may betray him. His body may not allow him to be the player that he once was. But Chris Paul is a guy that works extremely hard. You don't become the best point guard out of your generation sitting on your ass. You have to continue to put in that work, and that's why we see Chris Paul having this season that he's having right now in Oklahoma. And the thing that's funny is people wouldn't even think that Chris Paul will still be a good defender after having the hamstring injuries and stuff like that. People wouldn't even think that he's probably still a better defender than Russell Westbrook right now, who he was traded for. And considering how fast and how strong and how big Russell Westbrook is, that sounds like a slap in his face. But he's very disciplined. He knows the coverages. He knows how to guard these players. He studied the film, and you can just see with the execution that Chris Paul at this age can still be a feisty, competitive, and witty and smart defender. And it's just about knowing the angles, knowing when to give up, knowing when to be at the spots that you have to be in communication. And that just comes with basketball IQ. And we know that Chris Paul is definitely one of the smartest players in the NBA and still is currently. And he has been able to figure out how to still be effective at age 34. So I think that that's very impressive. But when you look at teams that can possibly use a player like Chris Paul, besides Miami, who might not need him, and then you don't want a young team taking a gamble on him because he does have multiple years on this contract. So a team like Phoenix really wouldn't make sense, as they got Rubio, but at the same time they still is very, very young. And Rubio is injury prone just like Chris Paul, but I do think Chris Paul is a better player still at age 34. Um, he's still a better player, in my personal opinion, than Ricky Rubio. You look at the Wizards, they got Isaiah Thomas, but they do have John Wall coming back, and him and Bradley Beal are on huge contracts. Orlando Magic has found their starting point guard in Markelle Fultz. The Hornets have Devontae Graham, Trae Young on Atlanta. The Bucks has been another team that he's been very, very rumored to go. I think he still probably is a more all-around better player than Bledsoe. And like I said, you're not losing that much defensively if you do trade Bledsoe, but you get so much more offensively if you get rid of Bledsoe, because he has the three-point shooting, he has the mid-range game, and he's just a better passer. But you still have to look down 2 to 3 years from now. Can Chris Paul still be a competitive player in the Eastern Conference, while Bledsoe has aged, but he hasn't been able to be effective in the postseason, but he has been solid in the regular season, while Chris Paul has been very dominant throughout his years in the postseason. But like I said, he's still going to have more years on this contract, and you don't want to just trade for him and then be stuck with his contract for the next 2 to 3 years, depending on how long he stays. And you look at Detroit, they have Derrick Rose and Reggie Jackson. That's a team that he can really go to, but I don't know if him and Blake will want to do that again. Plus, it would still make them a mediocre team. And even though you're getting rid of one contract that's bad to people in Reggie Jackson, you're not really getting that much value back if you trade for Chris Paul. Even though you might get the better player in the trade, like I said, he still has those 2 years on his contract. But not only that, can he hold up too? Because Pistons are going to need him to do a lot on that team. And, that'll be a question if he's going to be able to hold up throughout the whole season. And then you look at the Knicks, they're another team that could possibly use a point guard, but they're in such a different direction that it wouldn't even make sense to trade for Chris Paul, because they are going younger, and they still do have Frankie Ntilikina and Dennis Smith Jr., who has shown promise and shown a lot of potential, and they haven't been able to reach it. They do look both like busts, but I definitely rather have them than Chris Paul under the contract that he's in. So that just lets you know right then and there, there's not really one place that he can really go to and really win a championship at this point, unless he decides to come off the bench. But who's going to pay somebody 36, 38, 40 plus $1 million to come off the bench and be a contributor that way and trade up assets to get them on top of that. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think a team should trade for Chris Paul? Do you think a team should trade for him? What team you should trade for him? And do you think Chris Paul is washed up? Do you think Chris Paul is done? Or do you think Chris Paul still can be a solid contributor on a championship team? Do you think he can even be a starter? Do you think certain teams should take the gamble like Milwaukee and Detroit? Or do you think those teams should just stay as where they are? Because right now, they are some of the best teams in the NBA, especially Milwaukee, and they don't really need Chris Paul. He would be an upgrade over Bledsoe, but we still got to look at the whole entire contract. And Bledsoe looks like he can be a decent player for the next 2 years, but we don't know if Chris Paul can hold up because of his injury history. But at the end of the day, I'm enjoying watching Chris Paul play. He just helped the Thunder win against the Pelicans today, and he still has a lot left in the tank, and he still can score, still can facilitate, still can defend. And even though his contract is a little crazy, there's really not that many places that he can really go to and start and make an impact on. And I think that he's going to be spending the rest of his season in Oklahoma City, which may not be a bad thing, because at least he gets to play, at least he gets to compete, and at least he can still be a starter. But also he can still help the other players like Shai Gilgeous reach their full potential. And a lot of these guys have had the best career season of their career, and Chris Paul can use this as an audition to show I can still play. I still got it, and I can still be a player that can make a difference on a team, even though I am 34 years old. But can be a great upside and can really help his career extend as he's aged 36 and 37 if he decides to continue to play. But even though I do want Chris Paul to win the ring, I don't really see him moving this year. And I don't know if Miami really would do it, like I said, because of Goran Dragic. And I don't know if Detroit would really do it because of the contracts of Drummond and Blake. I don't think Chris Paul makes them a championship team. It may make them a 6 seed, but do you really want to trade all those players to be the 6th best team in the East and be a first or second round exit anyway? I know Detroit might do it because that's what they've been doing the last couple of years, but he still do have those 2 years on his contract and he could be stuck. So let me know what you guys think about Chris Paul, and let me know what teams you think he should go on, and let me know what teams you think he can make a big difference on, or let me know what you guys think. Is Chris Paul, is it time for him to go to the bench? Or is it? And that's going to be a question for the next 3 to 4 years if he continue to play. Is Chris Paul days of starting over after this year in OKC? Like this video, check out my older videos on my channel. I have many playlists. I break down rookies, I break down players, I break down summer league. I do cover the draft, and I got a mock draft up already. Not only that, I do podcasts, and I also talk about the game of basketball, whether it comes to summer league, free agency, trade deadline, buyouts, and also I cover top 10 discussions and stuff like that. So you like this type of video, you like the NBA, check out my older videos and my playlists. I enjoy making these videos. You guys enjoy watching.